The Disrupt Education vlog can be found on YouTube. To hear it in podcast form, search Disrupt Education on any of the following podcast platforms: Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Breaker, Castbox, Overcast, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, Spotify, or Stitcher.
Frank Miller returns, it's a battle of the gods. Superman, Bruce Wayne, pockets full of wads. The Dark Knight in his habitat, Jason with the rat-a-tat. Clark Kent possessed the laser attack. Katana's on a dead back, pool full of blood, gang banging on the flood. Whips stay superior, Hydro Man remains inferior. Universal Cruise with a silver exterior. Red skull pinned on the chest, got a black mask. Hail Hydra, Harley Quinn, girl, I love when I'm inside ya. Agent Carter's up next, Central Time, bruh.
Welcome to this special edition of Disrupt Education. We're doing throwbacks, and today I'm here with Daniel Bevan. What's up?
What's up?
How are you?
Doing all right.
All right. We are downtown Chicago, South Side, South Loop.
South Side?
South Side. I'm a South Side guy, man. That's how I roll.
Fair.
So we're going to be going over the first 10 videos of the series. Right now we're at about 101, 102 when we're recording this, but this will be out there.
Yep.
So far, what do you think of Disrupt Education in the videos? What's one thing that comes to your mind? And we're going way back to the early ones.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've been doing this for 3 years now.
Yeah.
But the same things keep coming up.
Yeah.
Video to video. So you kind of see that there's universal principles and concepts and ideas that young people, and even adults have that need to be talked about, because that's the new conversation is now not what have we done before, but what can we do to get better?
Right.
And you're seeing these kids come out of college lost, and before there was no real solution, or the solution was sort of like a gap year, or just do a job. Now you can go into a whole new career without college.
Right.
I'm not saying college is terrible, but that path was never really
There's
painted.
so many different avenues
Exactly.
now, and I think this series has exposed that.
Yes.
And it's pretty interesting to see the different paths that a lot of the guests have taken.
Yep.
You included. You're going to be in the first 10 here. So let's just jump in right now. We're going to go into number 1. Our first one was with Derek Griffin.
Legend.
So let's take a look at his quote out of that. We picked about a minute or so segments out of each one of these, and then we're going to hash them out for each of the 10. So here's number 1, Derek Griffin.
Robots.
Is there, in that time frame, would there be more different types of classes that you'd like to see that the system doesn't have in it?
I would like to see more classes catered to students actually being able to do the things that they love doing.
Right.
I feel that in some respects, having to take certain gen eds, they may not really match up with the type of individual you are, doesn't allow you to find yourself as a person. Right. And I think that the high school realm kind of teaches you to really find yourself as an individual, figure out what you want to major in, what do you want to pursue in your life as a career, quote unquote.
Right.
But the system itself is defeating that purpose if they're only giving you X, Y, and Z to work with.
Right.
So I think there needs to be a little bit more of a variety, more diversity, and really just understanding that not every class matters to certain students, and taking that into consideration. I think there's always going to be your essentials, but you gotta get outside of that box. So I would definitely express entrepreneurship for sure.
So Derek there is saying a lot about flexibility and learning. How we're talking about the secondary level here. And I know there are primary teachers that actually follow, but what he's focusing on is especially, I think he was just out of high school a couple years ago. Out of this,
3 years ago.
And he was talking about, there's X, Y, and Z, but there's also A, B, C, D, E, F, all the way through.
One thing he was saying was how the mission of what school is supposed to be, high school and then going into college, is not aligning with what they're actually doing. So he mentioned that, college is supposed to be about, finding out your career and all that, but you're only limited to a certain amount of classes, which makes sense. I mean, we've been saying it for a long time. It's kind of a backwards way of doing it. Just giving everyone the same amount of classes, and then say from there figure out, what you want to do.
Right.
And it should be, what do you want to do? Okay, let's give you classes based on that.
Right.
So that's a very interesting point that he brought up.
And along with that, he's going with, there's limited exposure, and everybody just gets exposure to this set of things.
Exactly.
And this is basically where the whole thing started.
Yeah, right? Yeah. It's a great starting point. I have to tell you that.
So I'm gonna guess we're gonna see this a little bit more and more come through a lot of the videos. So we're gonna jump into the second video. The second video was not really an interview. It was me giving a speech to a whole group of business students, and it was about 25 minutes long. I am very rough in it. And I love it though, because I can see where I've come from now and go way back, and I still am improving. But this is something when we start talking a little bit later on your value, if you document what you do.
Yeah, definitely.
Very
good point.
You can see.
Yeah, you can see the growth as well.
Right. So let's take a look at Disrupt Education. See, I'm even having troubles now because I'm going way back. Disrupt Education, episode 2. It's me. Stay out of being a hater, because haters don't do anything but be curmudgeon and angry and grumpy all the time, because they know they're not doing anything. Waiters are kind of what you've been taught to do in education. I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. Start creating now, because nobody cares about your gonna. Every time you say I'm gonna do it, by the way, think of gonna as I'm never gonna do it, because that's what's happening. I am doing it is where it's at. I want you guys to think about that. So seniors, second semester, you want to grind out. It's not going to be easy. You have a huge opportunity here to make some things happen, to start experimenting with things, to start doing things. Because wherever you're going to go, people want to see what you've created, what you've done, not the A that's on the floor. Because that's where all my report cards are, stuffed in a drawer right now, because they don't mean anything to me. It's the experiences and the learning. So that was my speech. I named it Haters, Waiters, and Doers. I still actually give that speech a lot of different times.
Still valuable.
And thanks, man. I've learned a lot of that from the 3 types of people who you talk to, or the 3 types of students I've dealt with.
Yep. So and it's funny because that's business and career, and that's life advice. You know what I mean? There's haters, there's waiters and doers, and everything. Right. So just if you're applying that to students, students are typically waiting. They're waiting to be told to do something. They're waiting for the parents to set them up for something. They're waiting for their college professors to, it's all a bunch of waiting. Yeah. So in a culture of waiting, how can students sort of flip the switch and become doers? That's obviously haters are just I got one question for you though. Yeah. Where are your grades? Like where are your report cards? Well, not with me.
I don't know. So that was my point there is when I go back in, like I want students also to realize that there's more than just grades. Of course. Not saying the grades are bad or anything like that, but
they're not. Yeah, they're not bad at all. The value of the grade is decreasing every single second of the day, and every single year, and it just keeps getting lower and lower and lower due to the internet and other great advancements. But at the end of the day, if you're talking about a career and we're talking about connecting students with eventually their employers, the connection there is the employer only wants you if you're valuable. Right. So, and we've all established that the grade is a lot less valuable than actually doing the actual experience. Right. So we're going to see, we're already seeing it, but we're going to see even more and more the grade become a lot less valuable. And unfortunately, the waiters are just, they're getting their grades and they're just waiting to be, okay, what did my grade mean to the world? And it essentially means nothing. So you have to go out and take it for yourself.
And with that, I'm trying to form the conversation with younger and younger people that the waiters are waiting to know what's next, right? We all know what the haters do. They're just hating. Yeah. But the waiters are waiting to do, what do I do to get my grade up? What do I do to get my grade up? The doers are actually doing because they're passionate about something and something fulfills them. And usually that's helping other people.
Whether it's the thing that they're doing at the moment or if they're doing something to get to where they want to go. Right. That's, doers have to doers essentially sacrifice.
Right. So
while waiters can just chill on the sideline.
So the third one, episode 3, was with Sebastian Medella. Sebastian talks a little bit about, at the time he was in entrepreneurship and he's bounced around. He's done a lot of pivoting, but he says something very interesting about how we should look at education in kind of a physical fitness way here.
Okay.
So let's take a look.
Say, for example, you're like a athlete, like where do you go to like grind? The weight room. Well, let's make something like the weight room for like business people who just want to grind. Well, I guess that's like the business club too. But like let's just make it like other people's grinds.
But in the curriculum.
Or maybe in a curriculum too.
Right.
That would be like a way. Like for example, at Triton there's like a weight room class. Like why can't there be a class here that's just like grinding, just like you would do in a weight room to get more muscle, but for like your business.
Right. I got you. That's very intriguing. I like that.
Make a weight room for business.
So do you think that's why like a lot of people are disengaged in school?
Man, I possibly, and it's also because like you're young. You honestly, like, I mean, in high school I had like a 2.4 GPA. In college, my first semester I got 4.0, then like 3.8.
Yeah.
And then like 3.6.
Seb Medalla actually did a lot of my early videos for me. He was a creative. He still is a creative. He, like you said, he's pivoted around a little bit, but he brought up some really good points here on education. We build muscle in the gym, right? So how do we build our passion and things that we're interested in outside of the box that Derek was talking about in the first episode? And he mentions, look, why don't we make a gym or workout place for this type of learning?
And that's yes, that's kind of vague, but if you really think about it, how cool would that be if there's a room or a space or a department specifically for something or for a type of person?
Right.
Right. I mean, obviously, I'm not in the weight room. I would go to the entrepreneurship, room. And what that does, it facilitates sort of like a collaborative environment, really. So if I'm working on my own project and someone else is working on their own project, and we can somehow figure out a way to help each other, it's always when you're an entrepreneur, you can be lonely at times, right?
Right. Yeah.
So it's always good to get different voices and different opinions and different perspectives on what you're doing, and vice versa. So
this opened up a lot of conversation back in the day with Seb and I and a lot of others about like, what if there was this one period or section of the day that does that, and there's a place where you start to pull out your passion, your fulfillment. And then here's the second part about this conversation that we just saw that is amazing is he's talking about, people are young at that age. And I think, kids can do a lot of things, but if we don't set them up to understand what it's like to be an entrepreneur or just to be understanding themselves,
they're never gonna.
At that point, they're never going to do it, because in school we teach them, look, if you make a mistake, you're wrong, it's done.
It's over.
But as you grow up, we're going to make like, how many times did you fall when you're trying to walk? Well, hey, you don't remember. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think you're going to say fall when I started my businesses.
True.
And that was a lot.
Right. And in the school realm, it's like, that's bad. You have to be perfect. And I think what he's saying here is through the grades, his reflection of grades, he struggled in high school because he kind of felt I needed to perfect things. And then when he got in the flow of things and he started understanding, hey, you know what? I have this opportunity and it's okay to mess up.
Yeah.
That's when he gets the 4.0
exactly.
at the college that he went to.
The pressure kind of goes away, and you understand that regardless of what you do, you're either going to, one, succeed and achieve something, or two, you're going to learn from it and do better the next time. So it's always a win-win, and that's very Seb.
So there was a really deep kind of commentary. We've had a lot of conversation on that. So we're going to jump to episode 4. OPC Kicks, Peter Mullen.
This guy's a savage.
We'll just roll this one.
When has an idea or any kind of entrepreneurship, the most valuable time, most important time is when you're in high school, and when you should be able to really designate time and energy into it, because you're learning already other stuff. You should be learning your trade and what you want to be doing if you really believe that's what you want to do and that's what you want to get into. So, it just puts you people are like, oh, you have to wait to go to college to get into a specific thing.
Right.
Why? Why do I have to go into college? Why not? Why do I have to wait till I'm 18 to pick something that I want to be? If I know I'm really good at this and I want to be good at this and do it, you should learn this stuff just like your brain. You know, the earlier the better. The better you'll learn it, the better you develop more on it and think about it. And two, like OPRF is over 3,000 students, bigger than my college. Like that was something that helped grow the company so much if people were interested in this entrepreneurship. And now with the power of Instagram and Facebook, it's as easy as, oh, you go to this college, and you show a couple friends there, they show their friends. It can make something. It's not that hard to make something known in the United States.
All right, the true entrepreneur there, just spilling out some knowledge. Peter Mullen owns OPC Kicks, has done sneakers since, I don't know, he was like 2. I don't know. He's been like in middle school. So he makes a great point about why wait.
Yeah. It's always something I wrestle with. Right?
Yeah.
It's like, when I was 17, I was thinking, man, if I knew the stuff I knew now at 14, where do you think I would be when I was 17? It's just like what he said, the earlier the better. And there's, when he asks, why, do you have to be in college to, I think what he's saying there is for people that know what they want to do. But I think an important thing to add on to that is also the people that don't know what to do or don't know what they want to do. How do you figure that out? You try, you learn, you grow. Like it's very simple to figure out what you don't want to do. Just do a lot of stuff.
Right.
But that's not what high school is about. It's not about trying new things. It's about doing these eight classes a day and then on and on and on for 4 years instead of pushing someone outside the door and saying, hey, go experience this. If you like it, great, let's continue. If you don't like it, great as well. Let's start something else.
Right.
So
I think along with that, what he is putting in there is why wait. Like, so obviously he's hitting the waiters of my speech, but we had this conversation about the time, right? So how much time do I have and how much? So if you track, you brought it up. If you track how much time you're watching something via social media or YouTube,
Instagram, all of that stuff. I mean, it can get pretty lengthy, 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there. Next thing you know, it's 3 hours a day. And what he's saying, waiting, it's not even waiting. It's just sacrificing or prioritizing, really. So that 3 hours that you spent doing unproductive stuff, you just doing productive stuff. Right. So, I mean, there's really no excuse. And he's the perfect example of that.
Absolutely. And then at the end, he was talking about how easy it is to use technology, like what we're doing right here to get a message across, going across social medias and connecting with people. I always call it using technology, not being used by it.
Yeah. Great. That's a great. I mean, I think everyone watching, everyone in the world knows that it's so easy to get consumed by the phone. It's so easy. But, the other detrimental thing is, parents or people that don't know, that aren't really into this new technology era, they can just say, put the phone away. And that can also be detrimental. That can also hinder growth and learning for young people. Right.
And we're going to get deeper into that technology thing. But right now, you're number 5, man.
I'll tell you, it was a good episode. I don't even remember. It was good.
Let's take a look at this guy on number 5.
About the grade, focus on what people actually want to learn. Tell them why they're learning it. I mean, that's where you're going to get, that could happen today. Right. Obviously, there's huge ideas for this and that, but you do that today and you're going to get kids engaged right away. Or you're going to get them non-engaged, which is also good because it shows them, okay, they actually don't want to learn this, pass them to another class.
Right. I think one of the problems on that point, you made a good point, is if we have a student who is not good at something, we give them more.
Exactly. That doesn't make sense at all.
Right.
Strange how I know, right? It's like,
you stink at this, we're going to push you more.
We're going to make sure that you really stink now. Come on.
Yeah.
So,
that's
I mean, there's a million problems wrong with the education system as a whole.
Right.
But the great thing is businesses kind of changed the education system a little bit.
Yeah.
So you look at the patterns of businesses now. Seb, who's behind the camera, if he's, if he has clients all day, every day,
Right.
he doesn't need to go to school for that. He can just go to a company and say, hey, hire me. I've done X, Y, and Z.
True.
And that cuts out $10, $20, $50,000 plus the 4 years.
Right.
And, it's done like that. So education is really, it's almost cutting out the middleman at this point. That's why colleges are kind of like, they're so focused on the degree. They're kind of, that's almost a marketing tool.
Right.
Even though it's not really the value. So.
That hair, dude.
The hair, I'm telling you, man.
That hair. This is a throwback on the hair.
This is a throwback. I figured it out. I'll put it like that. I figured it out.
Great points there. I think a couple of the things that you were talking about, let's jump into the first point. The first point was being able to pivot quickly and understand what you do and you don't like. I kind of called it speed dating for your education.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of funny, like, as I thought about that more over the years, it's very interesting. We kind of, especially in America, it's about, never quit, never give up. But I actually don't agree with that at all. I think it's good to quit if you know why you're doing it.
Right.
You shouldn't just be, put into, this major and then just go through the major regardless if you like it or not. It just doesn't make sense because you're going to go out of college and you're going to be like, wait, I don't like this. I don't want a job in this. It's going to ruin my life. So quitting can sometimes save your career, save your happiness. So, I mean, a lot of these things they're very simple in terms of like the concept, but it's the practice that really matters. So how do you put these things into practice?
I think you have something in high school. This is like almost an interior gap year. Right? Like where you're exposing. We talked about in the previous episodes where people are like, if you're exposed to more, then we need to expose students to more.
It can only benefit you. You know what I mean? You're only going to get a wider perspective of life, and then from there be able to choose. Okay, I do like this more. I do like that more. I mean, think about if you have a parent that's a lawyer, and they're kind of pushing you to be a lawyer as well, and it's just like, I want to be a lawyer because my dad was, and it's like it's not really what you want to do. So
you're going to fight it the whole way.
Exactly.
I mean, and then we talked about like it's literally flipped on its head.
Exactly.
If you're not good at something, they keep doing. Okay, we'll add more math or add more science.
Instead of stopping now, saving time. Okay.
Or let's find a way different angle on your own passion to learn it.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And then you said something very interesting about the universities, right? And how, and this is something that's changing, and we're going to see this in later episodes. How apprenticeship programs are coming through where they're teaching people. Here are the skill sets, what you can do at a company, and business is driving this change because people are coming in debt, and they're coming in with some skills, but usually not a lot.
Yeah. It's funny if you hold people down long enough, they're going to be, they're going to get pissed. They're going to see these, avenues other than the 4-year degree. I mean, you got to think about it. How are two people in completely different industries? Both taking 4 years it doesn't make sense.
Right.
So what you're going to see is education and school are going to be, the narrative is going to be, they're going to separate over time. So we're going to see, like you said, these trade schools or just online courses be so much more valuable to students because it's going to be a 100th of the cost.
Yeah. Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So much more of the value, such little time to learn this stuff. And then the businesses, they don't, at this point, it's going to be so competitive that they don't care about, you went to Harvard. Great. What can you do now?
Right.
Because you have to understand these companies are spending time and money training the people how to do this stuff. Shouldn't they come in knowing how to do this stuff?
Right.
I mean, it's...
Yeah. I think if you add both of those right now, and I think that's where these things are, if you add some academia and a lot of value, that makes you way more valuable to everybody. So
way more valuable.
We're going to shift over to number 6, and that's David Douglas of Yolobi. He's going to talk a little bit about connections and actually when did we stop thinking the youth could actually do things? So we'll take a look at this one.
That's a good question.
Youth can actually do stuff.
Right. It's a lot of power.
They bring a lot of energy to the table, and they can do stuff. And I don't know where this happened, but if you go back 50, some odd years ago, you had young people who were doing, who were apprentices. They were reliable. I don't know where the dialogue started, but the dialogue did start that, hey, youth are unreliable. They can't really do anything. Wait till they graduate from college. This, that, and the other thing. And even then, that's just,
can't work, and it can't work down in the road where the future of work, and it's hard to look at it today. The future of work is, hey, I need to continuously build my skill set, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the earlier we can get them into the process of like, hey, learn new things based on projects and then grow your skill set, the better off we're going to be as a country. And neglecting that and waiting till either they've graduated or down the road, and that's not the place to be.
So David Douglas is the founder of Yolobi, and it's an app that connects people. Brings up a great point. You go back years, and somewhere that dialogue stops. Our youth can actually do things, and I think this is where that helicopter parent thing came in, and all these different things. We have some strong youth out there. If you give them a project and expose them to it, they can do things.
Well, it's kind of, obviously I wasn't around 15 years ago to have that dialogue.
Right.
But it's clear as day. Especially with the tools we have now, especially the internet, obviously. Kids can, listen, man, kids can, the fact that I started my first business at 18, and that was kind of late compared to what a lot of these kids are doing now.
Right.
The idea, you got to think, it's a logic question, right? Like, why? How is an 18-year-old or a 17-year-old or a 15-year-old not able to do, a basic task? We treat, it's almost like your whole kid, the education system's like just taking the kids through. It's almost like they're walking them across the street. And we all know why that is. A lot of that is, they want the good numbers. They want these kids to go to college because it looks better on them. The college students colleges want the students to graduate, because it looks better on them versus taking chances, taking risks. It's kind of sad, to be honest with you.
David mentions the waiting too. Like, why are we waiting? Like, why? There's a lot of questions.
Exactly. It's not just the students that are waiting. It's the institutions that are waiting for the kids as well. And it's just not a logical thing. You think about trying to optimize the world, optimize human beings to get the best out of them.
Right.
Why start so late?
Exactly. And again, we're going to keep seeing these themes, but it's kind of cool to hear it from other people.
Different age groups as well.
And we're going to go back to a 17-year-old at the time, DJ Isaac Palmer. He's on number 7, and he actually mentions how education can be childish.
Yeah.
So
I bet.
Let's take a look at episode 7.
Yeah, of course. I've actually done some research on this.
Yeah.
Like I've read about it and read about high schools all over the world, and I've noticed in Europe they have schools that are based on your career.
Yeah.
And I love that concept of schooling. If I had to do it, I would probably you could decide you could pick your class time, and you could you would be able to figure out it's more a career building thing, and you would get to learn your state standards, all that, but in a format of your path on where you want to go in life, And I feel like it would be more like an adult, not as much I feel like high school is a bit childish, you know?
Yeah, I get it.
All the stuff
I've taught it
learning,
for 17 years now, I know.
it's we don't use it. And I'm I would love to design something that you're going to know and you're going to use it in your real life. So that's kind of what I would do.
So Isaac kind of spells it out there. Went into high school and then did better in a homeschooling environment. Yeah. And right now, Isaac's he's a DJ. He does work all across the world. Just got back from Amsterdam at the time of this filming. But great point there, right?
Yeah. We kind of talked about how school was kind of backwards.
Yeah.
He just pointed it out right there. The idea of going into a school that caters to you is that's valuable to everyone, really. Why would you want to go to a school that you got to think about it. Everyone is learning the same thing, yet everyone doesn't take the same career. So it really there's no correlation. You know what I mean?
Right.
So he's just making a great point there. And I have heard that a lot of schools in Europe do that sort of thing. It's kind of like a trade school kind of mentality.
Right.
But it's kind of funny. We just got done with David's.
Right.
And talking about how young kids can't do, he's 17 at the time thinking like that.
And he's a couple years in at this point, creating songs, doing shows, and a lot of different things. And by the way, we had a conversation in this video about, did you learn math? Did you learn English? Did you learn? And yes, the answer is yes. I mean, he's hitting AP courses, doing all that online. And he makes a lot of points about, not one way fits everybody.
Of course. Yeah.
But if you pull that interest that a young person has, and again, we're talking the secondary level right now. It's pretty amazing what you can accomplish, and this young man has accomplished some crazy awesome things.
Yeah, definitely. One thing that he said, he basically was talking about how high school's kind of childish.
Yeah, it's the adult thing. Yeah.
And what he's saying about talking about kids like that, they want to become adults. They want to step into their lives at that point because it's been parenting all the entire time. Now they can, people want to start their careers, and I don't think the traditional way of thinking of the kid has to be 18 and then they can go off. I don't think that's necessarily what everyone wants to do.
Right, and the last thing before we move on to Jack Dieter, which will be on number, what is it? Are we on 8 now?
We're on 8, yeah.
We're on 8. Wow. The last thing that I want to mention about Isaac, what he kind of said there was. The look into creating an educational model that then you check mark off what the state standards or the standards are. Let's just give a hint. Check out my 100th video on that because there's a whole school that is actually developed around that. So that's pretty cool. All right, let's take a look at an entrepreneur who took a little bit of college and is now a straight up entrepreneur in the restaurant coffee industry. Jack Dieter.
Downtime, right?
Right. There's absolutely no downtime. There are no private jets. There's no fancy cars. You have to. So in business school, they teach you, or even entrepreneurship, it's a lot about how it goes by the book. Like, okay, if you do X, Y happens, and that's not necessarily how it goes. I mean, the first thing they should have started off with was Murphy's Law, which is anything that can go wrong will go wrong.
Right.
From there, you can take your, you can schedule out how you want to teach that class or whatever. But Murphy's Law is the first one.
Two things Jack threw out there. The first thing is the fallacy of being an entrepreneur and actually what books teach you versus what reality teaches you. And secondly, one of the biggest skill sets for anybody in a corporation or being an entrepreneur, creative problem solving. Let's take a look at the first one, the fallacy versus reality in entrepreneurship and running a business.
It's funny, because, most people think they think entrepreneur, they think business owner, they think rich, they think, this great lifestyle, which it can be.
Sure.
But when you decide to become an entrepreneur, you are now working more than you've ever worked in your entire life.
Absolutely.
There's just no way, if you're going to be successful, there's just no way around it.
Right.
And your goal kind of, or one of the underlying goals is to get to that point where, you have a little bit of financial freedom, a little bit of time on your hands, more flexibility that basic jobs don't have.
Right.
There is no 9 to 5. It's typically like a 7 to 11, a little bit of a break.
Jack's is, if I remember correctly, it's like 4:30 in the morning until 9:30, 10:30 at night. And that's the restaurant business, coffee business. But you're right. I think to that point, a lot of young people that I work with and I consult with really think they should be somewhere at an earlier point.
Yeah. Right? I mean, there's a reason he's doing the 4:30 to 10.
Right.
There's a reason. It's because he can't get to where he wants to get to without doing that.
Right.
And putting in the time it's just one of the things that you have to do regardless of industry, regardless of career. It doesn't matter. You just got to put in the time.
I think there's the challenge in education with that, because what we do in like 4 years, or we give quick, hey, here's your A, good, you got a 4.0 right now in 9 weeks or 18 weeks or however big your grading period is in school. And I think that sometimes gives people the wrong idea.
Yeah.
Right? That it's not a cycle.
Yeah.
It's just, okay, we're start, finish, good, we're good there, check off the box. And entrepreneurship is not like that.
It's like there's almost like mini milestones in education versus in a business, like there's ups and there's downs. There's
Right.
like you can achieve something and then lose it the next day.
Right.
And I think that's why putting the time is so important, because you're sort of like, not only are you trying to grow, but you're trying to maintain what you did yesterday.
Right.
So,
right. And then the second part is Murphy's Law,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
which is you can't really teach that, but you can teach strategies
Yeah.
to look at different challenges that come your way.
I think that's more of a life goal, or a life lesson. Sorry, but it definitely does apply to business. I mean, you got to think, if you're not preparing for the worst, you're going to be in a lot of shit when things do go wrong. And and if you're financially supporting yourself, that's an even bigger pressure as well.
Right.
So you got to also think about it as an opportunity, though, because if you're young, if you're 15, 16 in high school, living under your parents' roof, you have time and you can take those risks.
Yes.
You
can screw up.
You can screw up, right?
You got a house over your head. You got food on the table.
Exactly.
Hopefully,
So you're good. So you can take that time to learn not to take that for granted.
I think along with that, the schooling piece of this teaches, unfortunately, that okay, well, too many teachers will tell you the answer or try to guide you. And this is kind of the childish thing. There are pressures on teachers. There are pressures on why your grades look like this, why, are your students struggling? Parents are mad because, so there's all these different layers onto that. But however, in business, it's, either the customers are coming in the door or they're not. And if they're not, you have to change the way you do things. And that's something that I think, and Jack knows this.
I'm still learning it.
Right. I think we're all understanding that problems are going to occur, but if we don't proactively try to change our angles at these things, and do what traditional school has taught us, okay, well, we keep doing the same thing and the same thing over, and I'm like, oh, well, eventually I'll just get a grade and move on. That doesn't really work that way.
There's no really one way to you can't just look something up and then that's the answer. Even if it is the answer, you still have to apply it.
Right.
And that's the biggest difference between, like you said, the sort of the school and the culture it teaches, the habits that it teaches you versus once you get into the real world, entrepreneur or not, you need creativity is. I mean, I think we talked about this a little bit earlier. As jobs start to diminish, as less valuable jobs start to diminish, the one thing that human beings have over technology is decision making,
right?
And critical thinking,
right?
And
critical thinking is big.
And if you don't have that and you're an entrepreneur, there's really no way you're going to innovate, no way you're going to improve, and you're basically screwed.
Right.
So,
our number 9 is Amy Renzulli, owner of School of Rock in Oak Park.
My first ever client, by the way.
Yeah, awesome.
$600, 4 days of work. I love you, Amy.
Thank you, Amy. But also, she made a big decision to drop out of corporate and do her own thing. And she does talk about being a parent here and allowing somebody younger to try something big. We'll watch her story now.
I think there's possibly a natural bias about what young people are capable of and what they can't, what they can and can't do. And that this notion that they have to do all these things in order to get to the next phase. But I'm learning this, as a parent of my own teenagers and watching my daughter, actually, she went to OPRF. She never went to her senior year because she went on a music tour.
Right.
She got back from the music tour, said, "Mom, I'm not going back." Finished school early and moved and started at a music college school in LA. And now tonight she has her first gig with a professional band.
Love it.
So there were no limits on her. We didn't tell her, you can't do this until you do this. And I see that with the students at OPRF in the business program. I see all this potential for them to, we're working on starting a business.
Right.
And that if that business starts, they can still run it from wherever they are. I mean, and then we were talking about it, you can still go down this path and do all the things you want to do or you're supposed to do if that's your path. But at the same time over here, you can have a revenue stream because you've had the chance to create something.
Parent of the year, parent of the decade.
My vote, definitely.
Right? Amy brings up a really, really deeply kind of rooted opposite of what parents are typically thinking, which is so simple to think about, but it's very difficult to do.
To apply, yeah.
Having her daughter just basically show her that there's no limits other than yourself.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah, it's funny because, we kind of talk about, parents are a big part of the equation. It's not just the institutions and the students. The parents obviously have a major influence over all of that. And it takes, you got to think about it. It takes guts to in a world where the internet is still pretty much brand new. Listen, your kid saying, "Hey, I want to go off the beaten path," and you're okay with it. I mean, that takes guts. It's great parenting, And here's the thing: let's just say worst case scenario, it doesn't work out for Amy's daughter in terms of the band and stuff like that. They can still go back.
Right.
They can still fall back on traditional education. They're still going to be there.
Right.
They're still going to accept your money regardless. Yeah. They're not going to say, "Oh, you're a year too old." No, you can go to.
She's going to have so many more life skills and such. And by the way, she still is a bassist. She's an amazing musician.
Yeah.
And if you go back to that episode, Amy does talk about her path and how, she was at a corporate gig and she was just, what, my creativity is done here.
Mm-hmm.
I need to pivot and do something else. And that was later on in life, which is a great lesson for anybody,
And she probably learned a lot from that move and then applied it to her parenting.
Absolutely. And I think, the other thing is going back and saying, again, we're hearing it again. I don't think people understand how much our kids can do.
Yeah.
And we don't always need everybody to do A, B, C, D, right?
Yeah, you could do A, Z,
right,
F. There's no, the order is very, you understand the structure. You understand that you're trying to, in a traditional education system, it's trying to be sort of a mass, sort of mainstream thing.
Right.
You get it. But at the end of the day, we're not robots. We're not all falling in line, marching in line.
Mm-hmm.
We all have different paths, different ideas, different passions, different experiences. And Amy's daughter, again, is more proof that, waiting both from the student and the university is not a good thing.
And what I love about Amy and the Oak Park School of Rock is basically what they do is they build like people up to
confidence.
Get in front of people and confidence and those types of things to actually make those moves.
Yeah.
That's her life. So how she parents is how she lives.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
Definitely.
We're going to round out number 10 with an amazing individual. I'm sure this little clip here is not going to do this interview a justice on Isaiah Maker.
Yeah. Most viewed interview?
Yeah, he's up there.
He's
Yeah,
up there.
so on the vlogs, yes, he's pretty close. I do have another one creeping up there. But Isaiah does a lot of work in the arts, specifically poetry slam area, working with big companies, working with schools. Let's just hear his clip right now.
Because if we're sitting back and we're like, go do this, no one respects that,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's just like a manager or a boss. It's like, go do that, and I'm going to go play golf.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Yeah. I'm glad you made that comparison, how the correlation of things that are going on in school and the workplace, they're dealing with a lot of the same challenges, whether it's engagement, micromanagement, and not even knowing or understanding who you're working with. And I'm thinking, that should be the foundation of any job. How do you not know who you're working with, what type of skill sets they have with their background? Once you know that, it's easier to execute whatever project or whatever assignment you have.
Right.
Because you guys have an understanding. It's almost like a football team where you have all these players, but you don't even know what their skill sets are, what position they play. That's weird.
Isn't it? Yeah, that's the way. We're siloed, so siloed,
Exactly.
especially in the high school realm. How can we make that happen?
Every time I talk to Isaiah, my mind is blown. Isaiah Maker is what I would actually, I don't know his IQ, but I think he's a genius. Anybody who says something like, how do you field a football team, the whole team, and not know what positions people play or who they are?
Yeah.
I equate that to in school, how do we push everybody through this traditional system without actually taking a look at the individuals in it and who they are? this goes back to one of my quotes, and I think I actually created this quote after I talked to him. It's like, we need to stop teaching subjects and start teaching students.
Yeah.
So
that's, I mean, it's what we're seeing now, and we will continue to see. It's customizing the education experience for students. I mean, that's all it is. And, like Isaiah said, the first step is first off knowing, the student. Like when I'm on the phone with the client, I don't just say, okay, the project's going to be, I want to know the details of the project first.
Right.
It's just very simple stuff. Like, it's as simple as it gets. But for some reasons, the schools just say, all right, everyone come in here. Okay, we're going to teach you some stuff. I don't know any of you. I don't really care about your passions. We're just going to do stuff. And then in 4 years, you're out of here.
We're siloed. I mean, that's
exactly.
It's
almost like we're kind of like cattle, just like being pushed into certain spaces. I mean, everything Isaiah says on these types of topics is very articulate and they're very practical.
Mm-hmm.
It's very simple stuff that has a major effect on either students or the institutions or even parents.
Right.
And it's just,
we can go way deep into social emotional learning here.
Yeah.
We can go way deep into the timing of actual secondary education, how much time we actually spend with students, how many students we interact with. I'm talking on the teacher side of things, but also how are we teaching students to actually interact with others in an outside of, let's just compete for the silly grade.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
Even if you think about what he just said about learning about the student first before you teach them, which is basically what he's saying. I mean, think about if I get to know you first and then I get to teach you something. Right. You're going to be a lot more receptive to what I'm saying because you now know that, oh, he cares about me. He understands, what I'm going through in my situation and what I want to do in life.
Right.
So, if you're sitting in that math class and, you're like, why am I here? You have a good reason to do that because there's no attachment.
Right.
The teachers haven't attached themselves. The curriculum obviously isn't attaching.
Mm-hmm.
There's no correlation, and
there's so many things that we can change with, even within the system. Just little things like timing of classes, right?
Something simple as that.
Extended to like a block schedule or bigger times or combined classes. Try to understand, like, have a class, kind of going back with what Seb said.
Yeah, just for
your experimentation. And then you're like, okay, he likes or she likes this. And then, so let's put them into that and let's try to figure that out because now we have a better understanding. Because the timing of it, I will know as, a 20-year veteran of teaching is very difficult. I work with 150 students every day.
It's difficult for the students and for you.
Exactly. So I think the whole system, the way it's set up is not really to engage in human behavior and human relationships like Isaiah is doing it.
Yeah.
And he takes it to the corporate level, he takes it to the education level.
Because he knows it applies to everything.
Right. And that is an amazing way that we can round out our top 10.
Definitely. Great top 10. I can't believe, we got so much value out of just those 10 episodes.
Right.
Wow. And really great I've obviously seen all these before, but just watching them over again.
Yeah.
And then seeing how they have still applied today.
Right.
This stuff it's universal and it's just stone cold facts a lot of the time,
What is one thing? We'll end on one thing each of us got out of these 10, like the biggest thing that you got out, and it's going to be difficult to pick one, but what do you think?
I mean, there's a ton. I guess the one big thing which we saw a lot of is customize. I guess I could jump to another thing as well. Mm-hmm. Customizing the experience, and from there, what we saw with I believe David and Amy is that let's take Seb's idea of one period of the day we're in this experimental class, right, and we learn what we like, what we don't like, something that Peter was talking about, and then go choosing your path from there, and then Amy and David were mentioning how you can start earlier than you're told to,
right,
or that you're expected to,
right.
How do we get to that point in education or traditional or mainstream education where the process is very simple? You learn what you like and what you don't. You start if you need to quit because you want to and you feel something else is better. You do that. If not, you keep going. No limitations. All these things are connected,
Right.
So customizing your experience is the number one thing, and then everything else just branches out.
Right. I think you're right. A personalized look at this. which a lot of people will say, you know, that's really difficult to do. But yeah, you know what? Anything worth doing is very difficult to do. And I think that we have a lot more to learn about how we can actually experiment. Even in education, I think we should fail. We should be allowed to fail in educators as educators, building different systems. Some of the cool schools that I talk about later in my episodes, down close to 100, is they are failing. And there's an understanding that that's not going to fail a kid if you frame it right and you teach them through that failure. Correct. So with that being said, thank you so much for joining us for the first 10. Nice throwback. It's crazy going back and looking at these. We're going to be doing the second 10 soon. Keep going, keep disrupting education. We appreciate you all. We'll talk to you next time.
Thanks.